budget and cash. Oh, sure. Why would you? I like it. You were so weird. It's just so funny that you're like,
I worked next to him twice, and he's like the shyest in the world.
What?
Yeah, he was. I was like,
You just start talking to you about death, like life and death. Oh, I don't care. You're like, straight into that conversation. But to me, I guess that's what it is. I respond to anything. Julia, Jamie, Jennifer. Here's your usual friend, from New Mexico, so I think that helps. Like, okay, you're just.
came to one of our organic groups. He's like, Alex, I'd like to totally, Christian freshman. He like then went home and took the law board and we had like a picture of like do a lot of work in.
The folder with your name on it.
She hasn't come to any of our things. Because like I don't know. Right now Becky and I are the most prominent teams. Like 15 will go. 20 will come in, but mostly now it's more attending, I think, in like third years for some reason. And Jay has come along. He loves it. And he's but mostly pretty easy.
Yeah, it's easy, but have fun. I don't know, she's from Twilight. Yeah. One of my fellows on their EMS elective and yeah, I also did it's not one line, it's the first time to go here. Like 3 times, and I only drive like when there's no traffic. Yeah. And it's not that. I mean, it's really not that hard. But I think it's so likely like not mandatory. And when you first moved there, it wasn't awesome. Sorry. But I get off that first over.
that's my
Thank you. I heard you're on the hot seat today.
We are
prepared.
It's crazy because that we are like hiring like but yeah, we have mandatory. I understand. They don't. We have required. Oh, okay. We have
Next, we want to have a cup of coffee and sit on the back porch.
Yeah. I know. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's snow on the ground.
Yeah.
It's not great.
Yeah.
Fun stuff.
Sure. Yeah. All that. It's very fun.
right? 2022, we'll do it again.
For the people on the phone, we're gonna give another 5 minutes or so, because we've had some accidents on our freeways nearby. If there's any members on the phone, can you state your name, please? Right.
Shelley, this is Rebecca Haro.
Becca Haro.
Yes, thanks, Shelley.
Hey, Shelley, Raymond Proa.
Raymond Pro, I gotcha. And Heather Miller. Hi, Heather. Hey. Good morning. Yep. I still haven't heard anything.
No, I didn't have any trouble.
Just checking at all. Okay. Our backyard is
Yeah, all right. I want to step away in and out.
She's available either she's deferred him. And then he has to doing
Well, sorry.
my copy, I'm sorry. Dr. Jacob and she said,
Okay.
I mean, as a level 1 that you're responsible to provide that outreach, so more than.
No, she's doing great.
Yeah.
How's the fire?
Yes, they said that now.
Reorg, new spot.
Not myself, but. The other one, so there's two Jordans, Jordan Weinberg and Jordan Jacob.
Oh.
So Weinberg's the one who did yours.
No,
But Dana showed Michelle.
They'll come to me in a second.
Yeah, she's, 3 by herself, first is Dr. Jacob. Yeah, so, I did policy. So everyone that we're hiring fire for next year is.
I think we got elected.
And has
Figure out for like a special asset. Yes, here, physically knows the state procurement process. Only have like 4 months.
Very good.
For the people on the phone, if you're not speaking, can you please mute?
Let's see then. I'll go do.
All right, I think we're ready to go.
All right, let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. I think we're going to start with roll call.
All right, Amber Prince. Yes. Candace Williams. Yes. Carrie Lewis. Yes. Corbin King. Dale Wilson. Danielle Stello.
I'm here on the phone.
All right, Darth Gamer.
Here.
Heather Miller. I'm here. James Cicilline.
Here.
James Cunningham.
Here.
Josh Gaither. Here. Julie Augustine. Here. Laura Smith. Here. Melissa Moyer. Here. Michelle Guadagnola. Nura Patel. Pam Nolan. Pam Goslar. Paul Dabrowski. Ralph Kelly. Ray Proa.
Here.
Rebecca Harrow.
Present on the phone.
Tiffany Strieber. Tom Flanagan.
right, thank you. The first item is Chairman's report. I'd ask that you all take a minute to look at the committee attendance report. A friendly reminder that if you miss 2 consecutive meetings, the Bureau will contact you to ask if you're still interested in serving on the committee. Next, I'd like to welcome and update you on the status of 3 new members. First, Amber Prince, who's joining us from Southern Arizona. Amber is the pre-hospital coordinator from Golder Ranch Fire Department and is liaison from SEAMS. Next, the MDC liaison, Julie Agustin, there you go. I told her I was going to mess it up beforehand. Who is going to be the liaison to MDC and is, of course, from Phoenix Children's Hospital. Thanks, Julie. Next, Tom Flanagan. Where's Tom?
It's Heather. Josh, he's trying to get logged in as we speak from Kingman. He's struggling, so.
I heard him. Tom, I hear you on the phone.
Yes, I'm in.
Tom, thanks for joining us. Tom is obviously from Kingman Fire and is a representative of a ground ambulance or first responder premier EMS agency QI officer. Tom, thank you for taking the time to join us.
I appreciate it. Sorry about the technical difficulties, but I'm here and I'm happy to be here.
Perfect. And then my final item is that the TEPI bylaws and roles are due for review in 2020, just to keep that in mind as an item that will be up for review in the coming year. With that, Terry and Ben, I'll turn it over to you.
You want to start with the rules update? Yes, thank you, Dr. Gither. We are currently in the process of updating several different rule articles related to the ambulance vehicles, both ground and air, and also have just begun the process of updating the rules related to a certificate of necessity for ambulances. The method we use, and for those of you who've heard this before, I apologize if I'm repeating, but our Office of Administrative Counsel sends out a draft version that to a set of stakeholders that is, I think we sent out the email to 800 people, so we should have 8,000 people, or some enormous number of people. So there should be plenty of opportunity to participate in the rule writing. And then we do an iterative approach. We have a meeting, we make changes based on comments, and then we kind of have an iterative report. We're sharing a timeline and a framework on the screen right now, but the best place to follow this is at the Department of Health, Office of Administrative Counsel, active rulemakings, and that's where this is all located. But if you ever have any questions about how to find them, just give me a call and I'll walk you through it.
And now I'm going to let Vatsal present 2 reports. One we presented at the Trauma Program Managers meeting, and one I think we presented first at STAB. If it's, are you?
Yeah. So we are trying to figure out the technical. Oh, okay. Yeah. I don't see you logged in.
She's logged in as Shelley.
Oh. Share your screen on
we had been asked at the Trauma Program Managers group to do analysis of, after we'd done the motor vehicle trauma reports, looking specifically at motorcycle trauma. And so that was presented and is that report. So now I will stop vamping and turn it over to Bob.
I did give a small presentation on trauma dashboard during our staff meeting last time. It is still not available on our website. We are still trying to figure out some configuration issues, but it will be pretty soon available on our website. This trauma dashboard uses right now currently 2017 data, and it gives you the picture of trauma in the state of Arizona. It is like our annual report which describes the overall, which describes the overall picture of trauma in the state of Arizona using our trauma registry data. So I'm just going to give you a little overview. I won't go into detail of each of the tabs of this dashboard. But so this is just the introduction page, which gives like, what data we are using, what is the objective, and the year range, and some of the definitions. That are, sorry about that. So here, the first page is basically will tell you how many trauma cases for the 2017. There were 15,355 cases, and then the age group, the gender distribution, and the main mechanism of trauma. And if we click on any of the mechanism, let's say as we can see, the fall is our main mechanism of injury. And if I click on the fall, it basically changes the picture and it gives you, okay, now how is the age distribution and what is the gender distribution. If I click on a motorcyclist, then we know we have more of a younger age and more of a male than female. So it changes the demographics based on the mechanism of injury. The next tab is on the top there are tabs. And we can see it because there's my sign of remote desktop is there. But it's damn it. So this is basically the trauma rate per 100,000 residents by county of, so that's the county of injury. Trauma rate by ethnicity is on that graph. So here we can also, as you can see, like Gila has the highest trauma rate compared to any other county, and American Indian Alaska Native population has a really high trauma rate compared to any other race ethnicity. But the cool thing about over here is that in this drop down, we can choose the mechanism of injury. So let's say I just want to know MVT occupants, motor vehicle occupant accidents, and then it changes the picture over here for the county, what was the intent. It is mainly 99% of MVT occupants are unintentional, and then the distribution of ethnicity also changes based on the mechanism of injury. So next tab talks about trauma, the alcohol involvement. And then so again, we can see the distribution by county, different mechanism of injury, what % of alcohol was involved, and based on ethnicity, what was the distribution of alcohol involvement, and by age and gender, what % of the trauma cases had either suspected or confirmed alcohol. And again, we can do over here is we can go into different counties and look into our own county. So if I want to see in Pima County, then it's just the Pima County, and then it changes the distribution of the race ethnicity, which mechanism is more, had more cases with suspected or confirmed alcohol, and it shows also the pattern of age and gender in that particular county. And here, total number of cases, it shows that there were 745 trauma cases. It is 16% of the cases basically had either suspected or confirmed alcohol. And the same way, the drugs. So total, there were like 6,600 cases of trauma where either suspected or confirmed drug use was there, which is like 13% of the trauma cases were found to have a suspected or confirmed drug use. And then we can see the race and ethnicity, again, the mechanism of injury and age and gender. And we can select the county from the side to see if the picture changes by county. And then the last tab is trauma mortality. There were a total of 1,177 trauma deaths in the 2017, which is basically 2.3% mortality. Trauma rate by rate, so trauma mortality rate by race and ethnicity, then mortality proportion by injury severity score, obviously like 25 to 75, that's a higher, very highly severely injured cases, we can see that 40% is the mortality. And then the trauma mortality rate by injury region, I couldn't do this by the county just because we have very small deaths in some of the counties and we didn't want to disclose that. So I had to combine the counties in the form of regions to give you guys the overview of the mortality rate by region. And then the mortality proportion by mechanism of injury. Obviously, firearm has the highest mortality with 15% of the cases died, and followed by MBD pedestrian is like 10% of the pedestrians die when they are involved in motor vehicle traffic accidents. And yeah, so that's about it. Basically, you can change the picture based on the mechanism of injury, based on the county of injury. If somebody is looking for their own county, they want to see some, remove some demographics, this way it will be available to them. That's our trauma dashboard. Hopefully, it will be available on our website pretty soon for the people to work around.
Quick question just to clarify. So the item you just showed us was the Tableau trauma dashboard, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And that's going to be available on the DHS website in the near future?
In the near future, correct.
And just for my pure academic curiosity, it's all raw data, hasn't been normalized or any way adjusted for population demographics?
Raw data, yes.
All right. Perfect. Thank you.
Our hope is in the future we will be able to update this yearly, and so this is the first time we've ever had public-facing trauma data, and so our hope is for the public there would potentially just be each year this kind of high-level information available. I don't know, I can't give you an ETA for when that'll actually happen.
The second presentation is on motorcycle-related trauma, and a while back I presented information on motor vehicle traffic accidents, and we went into this. I mean, we did the detailed analysis of motor vehicle occupants, and what are the demographics, which county has a higher incidence of motor vehicle occupants. So the motorcycle is a follow-up report, like we did the same thing as motor vehicles with the motorcycle, and we also developed an Excel worksheet, which basically is by zip code, which tells you for that particular zip code, how many motorcycle occupants were involved. What are their age distribution, gender distribution, how many had an alcohol and drugs, how many were not using helmets. So this report is developed mainly for our level 4 trauma centers, who wants to do some kind of an injury prevention program, and they want to see in their zip codes like what's going on, and what age group to target, or what ethnicity to target, or do I have a helmet? Is an issue in our community people are not wearing, or what is the mortality, and which zip code has a higher mortality if that is the case, and do we need to do some kind of intervention or not? So mainly for that purpose, this report is developed, to carry out some kind of an injury prevention effort. Again, because this report is by zip code, it's not available on our website for public use. But as Mary has started creating a portal portal account for you guys, and through that portal, we will be sending you this confidential report, so you guys can look at it in your zip code what is happening. I don't have time to present this report, but in a nutshell, it talks everything about motorcycle reports and incidents and by age and gender and helmet use and everything.
Thank you.
Quick question just to clarify. So for the portal access, that's both agency and hospital, is that correct?
Right. So Mary is already contacting them. Many of the hospitals are already signed up for the portal. Once we have almost all the hospitals signed up, and pretty soon we will be actually sending that report out. So please, if you have not signed up, talk to Mary and sign up so you can get all these reports.
Thank you. Next up is EMS for Children. Julia, I don't know if you want to speak.
Yeah, so my name is Julie Vincent, and I'm the EMS Council coordinator. So most notably, I think today we have our Pediatric Advisory Council for Emergency Services meeting at 1:30, so I hope you'll stay around for that if you're interested in that. We will be finalizing the bylaws for the committee, as well as we are working on finalizing the roster. So we're still advertising for 3 open positions, which would be currently practicing EMT, an emergency nurse, and a family representative. That's about it.
Thank you. We have had 2 work groups now meet to talk about treat and refer, revised treat and refer standards. We have a draft of the revised application and manual that we are going to present to EMS Council in January. The meeting minutes and the recordings of the discussion we had are available on the website, the ADHS website. In the committee meetings, there's a special column for our additional meetings. I don't know, do you want to talk a little bit about that process or have anything to add?
I think that's a good summary. Our goal is to really make this much more accessible across the state of Arizona. I think one of the issues we realized initially was both for large agencies, some of the initial application process and requirements were cumbersome, but also if you were a small rural agency and didn't have a lot of resources, it was also cumbersome as well. But hopefully this is a good compromise. We had great participation from throughout Arizona of all different size agencies. I think moving forward, this will be a really great program, and hopefully we can get more agencies signed up once this is approved in January.
And then the last thing I will talk about, so we have spent a lot of time talking about the Cactus data process and its discussion and action item later. We have had some, it's been a big project. We've encountered some hiccups kind of along the way, and I think the big thing is it's taken us a lot longer than we anticipated it would take. We have had some interesting technical difficulties that I would never have anticipated. We've also gotten some really good feedback and input about ways to fine-tune the software piece of it. It has taken VOTSOL many months, and we're up to about 2,500 lines of code to actually create this report. And what we want to be able to do is honor the process we had kind of described, where it would go to EMS RUG, TEPI, and EMS Council. So the software is not, we don't want to give you bad information to act on. Realistically, the software will be completed somewhere between now and the EMS Council meeting, but we want to make sure that the scores that the agencies will actually get have a chance to go all the way from EMS RUG, TEPI, and EMS Council, so that everyone has a chance to review them and make sure that they're comfortable with the information contained in the report. And so I think when we get to the discussion, I'm happy to provide more information, but I think we're kind of, we're not quite where we want to be before we propose potentially a minimum baseline score.
All right. All right, let's move to the action items. I believe the first discussion and action item is to discuss, amend, and approve the meeting minutes from the last meeting. Can I have a motion to discuss and approve the minutes?
Motion to discuss and approve.
All right, Julie, and a second from Laura. Anyone have any amendments that need to be made to minutes? Seeing none, then, can I have a vote? All those in favor of approving the meeting minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Perfect, thank you. The next agenda item is to discuss the sequence of discretionary reports. Just to refresh everybody's memory, in your packet you have a one-page list. The idea of this ongoing list was that our committee would provide a list of prioritized recommendations for potential issues of interest that we could recommend that DHS look into should they have time, resources, and the data system that allows that. And we've prioritized those. So I wanted to spend a minute looking at the list, reviewing the priorities, and seeing if anything needs to be added to it. For those of you that may not have the list right in front of you, the number 1 is to continue looking at SMR safety. And number 2 is to evaluate safety and adverse events associated with administration of Narcan. We have completed, I should say the DHS has provided a very nice trauma report today on motorcycles. I think that's an example of kind of what we would, what this list is designed to do. You would have suggestions, things to add to this list, different priorities.
Dr. Gaither, we currently have another report in the hopper on rehabilitation. That's already, it's also in the hopper. I kind of got out of sync with my staff on that one, but that's also in the hopper.
When you say rehabilitation data, do you mean fire and public safety rehab or rehabilitation as in rehab centers?
Yeah, discharge to different facility types.
Got it.
It's a deeper dive to a report that we did earlier this spring.
I know there is some interest in the last bullet, evaluating missing EMS trauma registry. Oh, I'm sorry, no. Very last bullet. Seeing death reporting. There's some interest in maybe modifying this to be looking at traumatic deaths in the field in general. I think that's the intent of this. But the interest that I had forwarded to me was to consider looking at traumatic deaths similar to the way that we look at cardiac causes of cardiac arrest. I think it's already there. We can work on modifying that bullet to say essentially trauma-related deaths that are not transported.
So what you would, Dr. Gates, or what you would like here is a motion to approve these items as targets with possibly the addition of the rehab data element. So moved.
Second. Anyone? Second. I guess technically we do need to discuss, so I got ahead of myself. My apologies. Any discussion on this? I think it is something to think about. Certainly take back to your stakeholder groups. If there is an issue that your group is really interested in, please bring it forward as a topic to the DHS to consider evaluating. All right, unless there's other comments, we'll take a vote to approve this list as a standing list. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Final agenda item. So this agenda item was to discuss, amend, and approve the Cactus data completion scoring methodology. I think with the background given from the DHS, I'm hesitant to proceed with this. So obviously it's a committee decision. I think I'd be interested in tabling this until possibly the next meeting. Would that be a fair time frame?
I think it would be best. I would certainly appreciate it. I know you guys have been incredibly patient with this process. It has taken a very long time, and I know that everyone is kind of eager to get it to a point where you can actually have the functional report and get into the actual process improvement piece. But again, I think we want to make sure that the report we give everyone is accurate and the data we're giving you is good, because the worst thing we could do is give you bad information to act on. So that would sort of be my bureaucratic recommendation.
Yeah, EMS Council had asked that TEPI addresses to set a standard for data quality or data completeness from the Cactus data set. The Cactus is not at a point that we can accurately say this measures that completeness standard, and so we don't want to push forward that this committee says, yes, this is the standard at X%, when the data doesn't support that. So really our hope is clean up the data set, bring it back to this group, and still do what EMS Council has requested, which is really set a standard, but do it based on good data. So I think that's our goal, that the committee is comfortable with that.
So then can I have a motion to table this issue until a time at which we have the information to make an informed decision?
So moved.
Dr. Gamer and James? Oh, sorry. All those in favor of tabling?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to the update section. I think the first update is from our trauma registry user group. Melissa.
Good morning, everybody. I do have a few things. First thing I would like to let everybody know is the TEPI call for data is now open. They are going to be closing the deadline December 4th. They will be taking second and third quarter data, so make sure that you get all those sent in. If you have yet to sign your user's agreement for the cloud and the aggregator report for validation, make sure that you talk with your administrators at your hospital and get on board with that. If you have not done that yet, NTDB will still be accepting the NTD file and the ITDX file, so both of those are available to send your data. The second thing is, I just went to the TEPI conference that they had over the weekend in Dallas, and there are some changes that will affect our registry. And the first and most important one is the inclusion criteria has now changed, and they've modified that a little bit. The current inclusion criteria that we have does not have a date of injury timeline put on that. And the second thing is our definition of an EMS transfer included must be brought in by EMS. So the two changes that have happened, the NTDB has now put a cap on the date range, and they said that the patient must sustain one or more traumatic injuries within a 14-day of initial hospital encounter. So that's been added, that's new, that we've never had to do before. And the second thing is, was the patient transferred from one acute care hospital to another acute care hospital? So the method of EMS has now been taken away. So that's something to think about on how we're going to deal with that in our Arizona state inclusion criteria. I don't know if that's something that's written into the laws or that's beyond my scope, so I'm not sure how that works. So if we need to amend those changes, we need to think about how we need to do that.
I'm going to squirm out of answering that right now until I actually look at what's in the rules.
Okay, very good. So, and just something to think about that with the EMS perspective being taken away, it's been easy in the past to be able to identify those patients that come in. So for an example, if a patient goes to my sister hospital, Deer Valley, with facial fractures and needs surgery, but wants to have a different plastics doctor do that, and she's transported by private vehicle because she doesn't want to pay for an EMS, she'll go to whatever hospital she chooses, gets seen by the physician, they say, yes, you need to have surgery, blah, blah, blah. But she says she doesn't want to have it done that day and then gets discharged. That patient, since it was still a transfer, needs to be put in your registry. So you have to find out a way to identify those patients. It's kind of skewed our way of being able to make our job easier in that aspect. So the inclusion criteria is a change. And then the other thing that they did was they made it easier for us to find the pre-existing conditions of alcohol use disorder. Before, it had to be verbatim that the physician must say alcohol use disorder. Now they've lightened that up a little bit to take the descriptors that are used to document that. So it'll be easier for us to obtain that information now. So those are the changes, just the inclusion criteria is the big one.
Thank you. Trauma Program Manager workshops.
I'm on the phone, Dr. Gaither. So we had a really good turnout at our last Trauma Program Managers workshop at Abrazo West. There was multiple people there. We filled the room and had to still bring more chairs in, so that was great. turnout. They went over, like Vassal went over the data. So they did some presentations on motorcycle data from Abrazo West, some injury prevention, and some, the state, Kim and Noreen went over the facts and the deficiencies from the state surveys and what they're seeing and how we can improve on getting them the information they need. Then Joyce Hospodar from Centers of Rural Health did an injury prevention needs assessment and presented that data. And then we followed up with our next trauma program managers meeting being in January. And I'm not sure where we decided to put it. I apologize, but it'll be in the Valley. So those were the key highlights of that meeting.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Next up, EMS registry user groups. Raymond.
Yeah, Dr. Gaither, I'm on the phone. So last time I talked to Ann Vosbrink, they were extremely busy. I think there hasn't been any movement until I think the next meeting is either this coming December or January for the EMS registry group. Last time I talked to Ann, so there's been no updates.
Okay, thank you. Next agenda item is ask for agenda items. Anyone that wishes to have an agenda item be considered, you're welcome to bring that forward or obviously send it to myself or Shelley via email. All right, call to the public. Okay, moving on, final agenda items, summary of current events, December 3rd through 5th, Navajo Nation Emergency Medical Services, Trauma in the Boonies. That actually sounds really fun. I got it in there. December 13th through 14th, American Trauma Society's Injury Prevention Coordinator course, and March 2nd through 3rd, NAEMS 11th Annual Arizona Pediatric Symposium in Flagstaff. With that, next meeting, March 19th, we'll see you all here, and thank you for coming. Meeting adjourned.